after the deep ancient and the catastrophe, then we get the period of the ancient civilizations and cultures that we know of. They are closer to that deep ancient time, and they are clearly the inheritors of some of the technologies, at least in some parts of the world, some of the technologies and that ancient wisdom that comes from the deep ancient past. And the reason why this is so important is all of their myths and legends and sacred traditions show evidence of a commonality that likely comes from the deep ancient past. So, today, let me introduce you to the stars of the sky. The ancient connection in the myths is celestial. They are speaking, they're using a celestial code. And so I'm going to introduce you to a god. I'm sure most of you have heard of this god, the god Zeus. And who's heard of Zeus? Almost everyone's heard of Zeus. He's the most powerful god in the Greek pantheon because he has the most powerful weapon. So we know that on this piece of artwork is in the museum in Munich. That's its accession number if you want to go look at it. And we know that's Zeus because he has this most powerful weapon. That's the thunderbolt weapon right there. And you know that's Zeus. But also, the ancient artist, or someone who knew how to write, if not the ancient artist, has written the name of Zeus right there. There's the ancient name of Zeus. That's the letter Z in Greek alphabet, Z-E-U-S. So we know that's Zeus. And the paint has somewhat flaked off a little bit, so I'm going to try and fill it in here for us. And I want to call attention to a few things about this picture of Zeus. He is fighting Typhon, his most dreaded enemy. Typhon, we'll talk about in a moment. But look at his posture. I want to call attention to that. Also, look at that beautiful purple shawl that is over his shoulders. We'll come back to that. And he's fighting Typhon. He's raising the thunderbolt. Typhon turns out to have been like bulletproof and thunderbolt proof. So Zeus was not able to defeat Typhon. Anyone know how he finally defeated Typhon? He had to slam a mountain down on top of Typhon. And that mountain is actually traditionally associated, where's Marco? Marco, who's speaking right after me, is from Italy. The mountain that is imprisoning Typhon, even to this day. It couldn't kill Typhon. Anyone know what it is? Mount Etna, right. And so every now and then, Etna erupts, and that's Typhon down there trying to get out. So this is a contemporary drawing of that same pot. So I didn't, make this up. This isn't my drawing. Look at the position of Zeus. It's after lunch, so in order to get everyone really fired up, I should make you all do the Zeus position. But since for the sake of time, I'll just do it for you. See how he's got this deep knee bend, his arm is outstretched, he's brandishing the thunderbolt over his head. Now, look at the stars off to the left, or your right, my left. And do you see any constellations up there that look like Zeus in any way? I'll just outline it for you right there. That is, of course, the constellation known as Zeus, right? No. There's no constellation in Zeus. That's the constellation we call Hercules. Very important constellation. You notice anything about his posture as you're looking at it there? Now, Hercules is the son of Zeus. The important thing to note is that just because it's named Hercules doesn't mean that that constellation always plays Hercules in the myth. It plays a lot of different figures, even sometimes female figures. But it is definitely also the father of Hercules, Zeus. Look at that posture. I'm just going to bring it over here. Boom. And we can see there's this very extended outstretched leg with a raised heel. There's the artwork. There it is in the sky. He's brandishing the front leg, deep knee bend. And there it is in the artwork. There it is in the sky. Brandishing powerful weapon overhead. And I think everyone, you get the picture. Now, notice the square-shaped head. That is a distinctive thing that you look for when you're trying to find this constellation. Square-shaped head could suggest a full beard. So figures associated with that constellation will often have a full beard, as does Zeus, as does Hercules. There's a Norse god who has a powerful thunder weapon named Thor. Has a full beard, except in the movie. So anyway, also outstretched arm. Like, why is Zeus touching the wing of Typhon? It's because the constellation in the sky has an outstretched arm. So keep track of those, or pay attention to those features. And who could he be fighting? So I put, he's throwing thunderbolts. Who in the sky might Hercules be fighting? He could be fighting a variety of different constellations around him, but in this case, I've shown the thunderbolts. He's throwing thunderbolts down on a constellation just below Hercules. And if you're looking off to the side, I'm going to outline it for you. Anyone know who this constellation is? It is known as Ophiuchus, which may not be as familiar of a constellation, but it's extremely important, as you'll see. And the name itself comes from the Greek. It means serpent holder. You can see he's a serpent bearer, or serpent holder. His central body looks a rectangle with a triangle on top, and a serpent on either side, either one big serpent or two serpents. Often that is the serpent's tail on your left, and then the serpent's head on the right that he's reaching down towards. Can everyone see that? Now, how could that be Typhon? If you look closely, Typhon has a torso that ends in two serpent legs, right? Now look at Ophiuchus, a central torso. The lower legs are actually rather faint in the sky, so I'm just going to, if we remove those, could you see how this could be a torso ending in two serpentine legs? Here's the two legs, the two serpent halves. One is a serpent tail, we call it. Two is a serpent's head. But look at how on Typhon, one and two tails. Now, people may be saying, oh, this is too much of a stretch, but I've seen this. This is a pattern around the world in nets. And I'm going to just show you, this is a diagram from the 1500s. It's a natural history book that shows all different animals and creatures of the world. Of course, they had to put a mermaid in there in the 1500s. In this book of natural history, you could look up, the characteristics of a mermaid. Now, look at that mermaid. Does she have a central torso and two tails? Now, what's really interesting is this shows that I'm not just making this up. Tail number one. Now, look at Ophiuchus in the sky. Now, where's her hand on that side? Kind of on the upper part of the tail. And on the other tail, where's her hand? It's kind of down towards the lower. The diagram is clearly based on the constellation in the heavens. And also, Ophiuchus sometimes functions as a mountain or looks like a mountain or a mound. And of course, Hercules had to slam a mountain down on top of Typhon. So it's not just the artwork, it's the story itself. I think that's important to point out. Like, you can figure this out from the story. He had to slam a mountain down on top of it. He was throwing thunderbolts, couldn't. But the artwork makes it very visual. I also want to point out, since it's after lunch, I know what you're all thinking. Starbucks has a mermaid with two tails. I forgot that was even in there. But clearly patterned after this one. Now look, she even has a star on her head, so we know that she's celestial. But also, she's wearing a crown. Now, are there any crowns in the sky near Hercules and Ophiuchus? Look just above tail number 2 on Ophiuchus, which is really the serpent head in some nets. See, tail number 2? If you look straight up from that, I'm going to outline it for you now. That is called the Corona Borealis, I'm making it flash. Can you see it? Can everyone see it? It's a very distinctive constellation in the sky. That is the Northern Crown. So it features in myths and artwork involving Hercules and Ophiuchus quite a lot. I also, after pointing out Starbucks, I want to point out Zeus's shawl. Remember how it was purple in the original artwork? I just fill it in this beautiful color there. Look at how it ends in two tails above his hip. Can you see that? This is interesting. On the other side from the Northern Crown, look back to Hercules there. On the other side from the Northern Crown is a constellation known as, so I circled the two tails. See the two little tails? Sometimes a Hercules figure will have a tuft. Sometimes it'll be in two tails. Just remember that. Now look above the hip of the constellation in the sky, right under the word Hercules. I'm going to outline Lyra, the lyre. What's a lyre? It's a miniature harp kind of thing, right? That you see on a Guinness bottle. Or King David, who's also associated with Hercules, but we won't get into that right now. See how it has, this is the outline of H.A. Ray. I'll just mention, my books talk about why H.A. Ray is so important. That outline, there's even two little guitar strings or harp strings. See the two little harp strings? Look back above the hip of Zeus, above the hip of Hercules. See that? But there's also a very bright star in Lyra. That's Lyra the Lyre. The star Vega, the fifth brightest star in the sky. Very important. So sometimes the shawl or the piece of clothing from a Hercules figure will point to Vega or to those two little stars. Everyone with me? This is not just coincidence. This is connection. Now I'm going to go all the way across the oceans to a cup that is found today in the Met Museum. It is a Maya cup from the 7th or 8th century. That means the 600s or the 700s, well before Columbus, obviously. This is a god. Anyone know this god? Put his name right there. Chalk. Chalk, sometimes spelled two different ways. He is a Maya god of rain. He's a Maya rain god. Now, he's on this beautiful tumbler that's in the Met Museum today. There's the accession number. Found in either Guatemala or Mexico, this cup. Is anyone familiar about his posture? Now, I'll bring him out here. He's brandishing a weapon over his back. In this case, it's an axe. So if you look at the outline of Hercules, sometimes that could be a sword, it could be a club, like Hercules swings a club around a lot. It could be a hammer for Zeus. It could be an axe for gods like Chalk. And in Africa, Shango of the Yoruba uses an axe. Look at that outline and tell me if you see anything that looks like the outline of Hercules. There's Hercules. Look at that. Everyone get up now. You don't have to. But now, the posture, I didn't alter that outline of Hercules in any way. The posture of Chalk is just, the legs are right on it, and he's brandishing a weapon over his back. He's got his rear leg extended. Another important feature of this is he's reaching out and grasping a disc. And if you read the text at the Met Museum, let's see where the disc is. There. Can everyone see the disc? They don't know what to make of this disc. They say, well, he's reaching out and grasping an animate disc in one hand. Why? They don't really know why, but we know why, right? Because there's a constellation right there called the Northern Crown. I'm going to bring back in the stars and we'll see if it matches up. See, look, if you look at Hercules before I bring in the stars on top of Chalk, I hope this isn't a spoiler for anyone, there's actually no lines in the sky. You have to imagine it. So you could imagine that outstretched arm of Zeus actually reaches up and grabs the disc. And we find this in artwork around the world. This is some kind of a connected system around the world. See how Hercules could be grasping the disc? Look at the disc. Look at the Northern Crown. Look at where it is on the disc. It's not an accident. This Maya artist knew this system. And I don't think the Greeks were necessarily talking to the Maya. I don't think that's the explanation. I think it comes from pre-catastrophe, most likely. But there's another important feature that hopefully you noticed. Look at Chalk's sash that he's wearing around his waist. And let me see if I can bring the arrow down to point out. You see a long tail with a tuft right there? Now look back up at what's above. Oh, there's Zeus with the shawl. Look at Lyra the Lyre, and you see Vega is kind of in the right place for, if we just kind of imagine a sash or a tail or a tuft, right? And we'll see this again and again around the world. I have to go fast so I can leave time to get into the other half, but this is around the world a phenomenon that is not an accident. It shows a connection and a common system. The myths are based on the stars. And when I say that, sometimes people nod their head and they go, yeah, this and stars. What I mean is the figures in the myths, the characters in the stories, and the stories themselves, like Zeus fighting Typhon, are based on specific constellations and heavenly cycles and parts of the sky. We already have this in Graham. I don't know if Graham's here or if Santa's here. I didn't have Santa's beautiful image. I took this one off of Wikipedia, but of course we saw this in Graham's presentation. This is from Angkor Wat. It's depicting something that's described in the Vedas. Very ancient. Joseph Selby told us about the Vedas in Sanskrit. That was fantastic. This is a picture of the churning of the ocean milk. I just put chalk up there since I just covered them up, so we keep this all in mind. And this is from Angkor Wat, probably around the 12th century. This particular piece of art, and as Graham has already explained, so I'll just make it go fast. Vishnu is acting kind of as the pivot of this great tug of war, with a serpent on either side. That's Vasuki, the great cobra. The Devas and the Asuras, and the good guys and the bad guys are doing a tug of war, and they're churning the ocean of milk. Mount Mandara is also the pivot. Remember, a mountain. Can you see how Ophiuchus could look like a pivot figure with a serpent on either side? And down at the bottom is the Kurma avatar of Vishnu. All the avatars are celestial, by the way. I talked about that in my books. But what I want to call your attention to is above Vishnu, we have a rain god. This is the rain god, Indra. He actually figures quite prominently in the Rig Veda. He's more in the Vedas than in the later Puranas and Upanishads. I'll make him bigger. Anything look familiar about his posture? I mean, can you see his posture? Like, should everyone get up? He also, so Zeus is a rain thunder god, Chak is a rain god. They all have powerful weapons. The thunderbolt of India is called the Vajra, and it belongs to Indra. Basically, that's Indra's weapon. Zeus, thunderbolt. Look at the Vajra. I clipped the head a little. Got the Vajra on there fast, but there's another. Sometimes the petals are open. Can you see how that looks like Zeus's thunderbolt? And across the oceans, again, this is another Maya codex. Anything look familiar about the posture in this Maya? This is from the Dresden Codex, about 1000 AD. You can see, again, we've got a deep knee bend. Oh, square-shaped head is now created by the headdress. Instead of a full beard, sometimes we have a hat, or see the hat on Indra. But look at that thunderbolt on the Maya Codex. Look at the Vajra. I'll just bring it over here. And I clicked ahead a little. I got excited with the pointer, but look up to Indra. Do you see a sash? I just made it red. I'll make it flash. This is a worldwide pattern. I could just go on and on, but for the sake of brevity, I'm just going to throw up a few. This is a god. Anyone know who this is? I did a whole video. I have a YouTube channel, so you can hear my whole video about Zhao Gangen of, obviously, Japan. He's a mountaintop god. Indra was above the mountain in the churning of milk. Zeus threw a mountain down. Actually, even in the chalk, if you read the Met thing, he's fighting a mountain spirit. Zhao Gangen is a mountain god. Anything look familiar about his posture? I don't know. And he's also brandishing a weapon that's actually a Vajra, which is in Japanese called the Kongo Sho. There's the characters, if anyone's going to read the kanji characters. But not only does he have all that, oh, a square-shaped hat or headgear, goes along with the constellation, grimacing face, and someone keeps trying to remind me that there's a sash in there. Right there, look at that. So this is around the world. I'm just gonna, there's another Vajra Kongo show on, you can really see it in the Zhao Gangen. Let me throw up just a couple more examples quickly. Everyone's familiar with Hercules. You see how he often wears a lion skin, makes his head look even more square, but also look at the tail, tuft. And also, he's fighting an Amazon warrior in this one. Do you see anyone see a crest or an arc? Sometimes he's even grasping that crest. This is from around 500 BC or BCE if you prefer. This is the Pylos combat agate that I showed you briefly. Didn't come out until 2017 of the ground. This is no later than 1500 it was buried. And as soon as I saw it, I said, the whole thing is celestial, but just concentrate on the upper figure. You see the deep lunge? And you would see that he has a sword. I could point over here too. The sword scabbard is sticking out, and there's like a ball on the end of it. And is he grasping anything that might resemble The Northern Crown? I'll just show one more. This is called the McGregor tablet. It's in the British Museum. Anyone know who this is? I just put it up there. King Den. That is acknowledged by conventional history and archaeology as the king who first united Upper and Lower Egypt, the first dynasty, or if you're English, dynasty. The first dynasty. This is already present in the first dynasty of ancient Egypt. The first dynasty king, he lived around 3000 BC. So this comes from, it's before the Vedas, it's before the Egyptians, it's before Sumer. I can show you this in Mesopotamia, I can show you this in the Gilgamesh epic with no pictures. I can just show you from the text. I can show you from the text of the Bible, which no pictures. You're not allowed to draw God in some traditions, right? It's all connected. Anyone see a sash or a long thing coming up? It kind of droops down between his legs there, but still, it's the same pattern going on. Any arc-shaped things, kind of where the Northern Crown might be? I don't know what exactly that is, but it's arc-shaped. And it's in the right spot. So, I hope everyone can see this is going on. This is going on. Now the question is, what does it mean? Why? So we're going to have to try and turn, it's a really hard corner to turn to. What does it mean? It has profound psychological lessons for us, or more than psychological, spiritual. Because why would all these beautiful ancient myths that fascinate us, but sometimes confuse us, be based on the stars? What are they doing? I'm going to try and answer that question today with two famous stories. The first one from the Bible, from the book of Genesis. Anyone know this scene here? This is obviously some of the children of Jacob. The children of Jacob, whose name was changed to, when he wrestled with the angel, Israel, Jacob Israel. The 12 children of Israel. Actually, the exact number is not 12. It's a little bit complicated. Just suffice it to say that because there's these half tribes of Israel, the children of Israel. This is a painting called Joseph Reveals His Dream to His Brethren by James Tissot, a very accomplished and famous painter in the 1800s. James Tissot. It's called Joseph Reveals His Dream to His Brethren. It's a scene from Genesis 37. Joseph has these older brothers. We used to say 11 or 12 older brothers. He's one of the babies of the family, and there's Benjamin is the younger than him. Joseph and Benjamin are the sons of Rachel, as opposed to Jacob's other wives and handmaids, Leah and Bilhah, etc. So it's a little bit of a complicated family, but Joseph is not loved by his big brothers. He's got brothers that are significantly older than him, and they don't like him for a few reasons. Why? Number one, he's clearly his father's favorite. Jacob makes it plain. Joseph's my favorite. Already this is going to cause problems. But then he gives Joseph a special coat. Only Joseph gets it. Then Joseph has dreams, special dreams, where he says, "No, I saw 11 sheaves of wheat all bowing down to me." And his brothers say, "Wait a minute. 12 brothers and 11 bowing down to you. We're going to bow down to you, our baby brother." He keeps telling them, it's like, Joseph, you might want to not tell your brothers all these things. And then I saw when all the stars, 11 stars and the sun and moon bowed down to me. And they say, "Oh, us and our parents too are going to bow down to you?" He says, "I don't know." So they don't like him. And then, on top of that, Jacob is always sending Joseph to check up on his brothers, see how they're older, they're doing like real physical work. And Joseph is sent up to go report back, how are you doing? Not likely to make Joseph super popular with his 25, 30-year-old brothers, and he's 17 or 12 or whatever it is. And this is a scene where he's being sent by Jacob to go check on them at Dothan in Genesis 37, because he's come across them, they're cooking their lunch, and he takes the time to tell them that they're dreaming. And you can see actually in the text itself it says, they see Joseph coming far off at Dothan, and they say, "Here comes that dreamer." I'm about done with that thing. Let's kill him. Let's kill him. You can see him. That brother on the right is like, I'm going to kill him. Reuben, one of the brothers, says, let's not kill him, let's throw him down in a pit. Reuben intends to go back later and pull him out, but by that time some other brothers have sold him, still passing care of him. Joseph ends up in Egypt. This is the whole story of how the bondage in Egypt. So he becomes basically a slave in Egypt, and he's falls for the use and into jail. He still has dreams, and in those dreams, he's able to hear the voice from somewhere else, the voice from the divine. He's connected to the divine, and he actually knows what to do. So when the Pharaoh has this dream about the 7 cattle and etc., he says, oh, that means a famine is coming, we better store up. And he saves Egypt from a famine. So Joseph, he may not seem like a very likable character, but actually, he represents something very important, which I'll get to in a second. So he saves Egypt, and he ends up saving his brothers because they're starving in this famine, and they hear, well, there's a lot of food down in Egypt, why don't you go down there? He's been elevated to the right-hand man of Pharaoh. Basically, Pharaoh says, whatever Joseph says goes in this kingdom. And Joseph's now, he's a grown man, the brothers don't recognize him. He's dressed like an Egyptian, he's the right, he gets all this armor, people say get out of his way when he goes down the street. The brothers are like terrified, they're begging for food, and they don't know it's Joseph, but of course he knows it's them. And he kind of keeps up the act for a while, but he keeps having to go back and weep, and not trouble. And he finally says, he has compassion for them, he loves them, even though they want to kill him. It's really emotional and moving. He says, guys, it's me, Joseph, and you want to kill him. Oh my God, Joseph, kill us now. No, I love you. And there's a reconciliation. It's a moving scene. What is it showing? What is it showing? Look, has anyone been looking at this painting going, is there anything celestial in there? Look at where Ophiuchus is. Remember I said mountains, mounds. Can anyone see the Milky Way kind of to the left of Ophiuchus? It's right there. See it? Left of Ophiuchus. Did anyone see a Milky Way in the painting like maybe a cooking fire or something that could... I could have shown you lots of paintings even from the Renaissance. This happens over and over. It's to the left of Ophiuchus. It's a mountain. Now the brothers, the children of Israel, the 12 tribes or groups of stars, 12 groups, that's the 12 zodiac signs. And I'm not the first one to talk about it. I'm not the first one to say this. Because there's a blessing by Jacob when he's on his deathbed to all of his different sons, and it's in Genesis 49. And he says things like, Reuben is unstable as water, Judah is a lion. Ooh, I gotta move on. Okay. So they're the zodiac sign. And I talk about this in some books and in my online course, Celestial Bible Field. They're the zodiac signs. And it's quite clear from Genesis 49. And the thing is, there's another, this is the path of the ecliptic, the sun, going through the background stars of the zodiac. But can you see that Ophiuchus dips his foot down into the zodiac? Is Ophiuchus considered a zodiac sign? It's the excluded sign. Was Jacob excluded and kicked out? But can you see that he dips his foot down among his brothers? Right there. This is not literal and historical. This is celestial and esoteric. And what is it talking about is something to do with us. It is a metaphor. Compassion. He has compassion on his brothers. I'll stop clicking for a second. He is an Ophiuchus figure. Can we agree on that? And his brothers are zodiac figures. So, which one are we? If this is about a metaphor that has to do with us, which figure in the story is us? Who are we supposed to identify with? It's a trick question. It's all of them. See, cutting-edge psychologists, this is the corner I'm trying to turn. Cutting-edge psychologists explain that actually you and I have multiple personalities. And it's not a disorder. It can get out of control, but it's not a disorder. We actually have different parts, different aspects of who we are. Like if I drive down the street and someone cuts me off, and all of a sudden I fly into a fit of rage, and then later people in the car would say, what the heck was that? I go, I don't even know where that came from. That wasn't me. They go, yes it was, that was you. It's part of who you are. It's a part. Okay? But we also have actually, this is not all psychologists believe this, but cutting edge trauma therapists and psychologists such as Dr. Gabor Mate, Dr. Richard Schwartz, who pioneered internal family systems. We have this internal family actually that acts like a family inside of us, but there's something called self. It's not a part of who we are. That's our deeper self. That's what we really want to connect with. And it exhibits, these are characteristics that Dr. Richard Schwartz has found in dealing with thousands of patients. He says, self naturally displays compassion, curiosity, clarity, all these C words, creativity. These are what we want to exhibit, calm, confidence. If we're not exhibiting those, it's because, and I talked about it in my most recent book, which is out there in some of my online courses. If we're not exhibiting those, it's not actually self. It's a part. And a part is not, parts aren't bad. All our different parts actually have something positive role to play, but they can get into these negative roles because of trauma. They're trying to hide some deep pain. So I got to zip through this because there's a really important closing story I want to close with. Oh my gosh. All right. Man, I pared it down and everything, but look, this is the ancient system uses the zodiac as the plane of our existence in this life, which includes all these different aspects of who we are, the different zodiac signs, and also Ophiuchus is here with us, but connected to something higher. It's our higher self. It's where we hear the voice of the divine. Look at Joseph. And also self is indestructible. Joseph, all those things that happened to him, this is why Osiris can get chopped up and come back. Jesus, 12 disciples, and none goes down to the underworld. Self is indestructible. Self is our connection to the divine. It's where we get that divine clarity.
Yes.
The myths show us how to reconnect with self. I don't really have time to go into the Medusa story, but in my book I do. That illustrates it as well. Medusa gets transformed in that story. It shows how we can reconnect with who we are, even no matter what we've gone through, no matter what kind of trauma. Self is actually still there, just waiting. The parts that keep us from connecting with self or exhibiting those, you'll just exhibit those naturally. The more I get in touch with self, the more I exhibit those naturally. When parts get triggered, and believe me, it happens with me all the time, it's because they're trying to cover over some issue. You have to go deal with that issue and heal those parts, and they can all work together as a harmonious team. That's what we all actually are yearning for. And these profound ancient myths from sometime before even Egypt and India are there to help us to do that. And that reconnection with self actually reconnects us with other people, connectedness, like Joseph was showing, and it connects us with the divine or the invisible realm, which I believe is real. And that is what I wish for all of you. And thank you so much.
Dave, thank you so much. That was just incredible. We are so much. There's just worlds and worlds and universes that we would love to hear. Just captivated by your storytelling and also by these incredible symbolic connections. Could we take maybe 2 questions. I see the gentleman in orange in the back.